Commander Kim walked slowly through the bright corridors of Station Theta 7. The station was huge, floating in space between 3 different solar systems. Every day, hundreds of ships came and went. Ships from the tall blue Zephyrians, the Crystal-like, Vortani, and dozens of other alien races. They all traded goods, shared news, and kept peace across the galaxy. Kim stopped at the big window that looked out into space. Colorful ships moved like busy insects between the stars. Some carried food from farming worlds. Others brought rare metals from mining planets. A few transported diplomats to important meetings. It was a normal day in the galaxy, just like it had been for 800 years. "Sir, we got the report from the archaeology team," said Officer Park, walking up behind him. Park was young and always eager to learn new things. He carried a small tablet with glowing text on it. Kim turned around. What did they find on Kepler 442 this time? Park looked at the tablet and frowned. More of those strange ruins. The metal doesn't match anything we know. The energy readings are weird too. The computer says the ruins are really old, maybe 2,000 years. Kim sighed. They had been finding these mysterious ruins on dead planets for decades. Always the same strange metal. Always the same unknown energy signatures. The Galactic Council had spent millions of credits trying to figure out what they were. But they never learned anything useful. "What does the database say about who built them?" Kim asked. Park touched the tablet screen a few times. It mentions something called humans. Says they lived a long time ago but disappeared. Most scientists think they went extinct because they couldn't adapt to space travel like other species did. Kim nodded. He had heard about humans before. They were in some of the oldest records, but nobody really knew much about them. Some aliens said humans were just stories. Others believed they had been real but died out when their home planet became uninhabitable. A few conspiracy theorists claimed humans had been very advanced, but there was no proof of that. "File it with the other reports," Kim said. "Maybe someday we'll figure out what happened to them." Far away from the busy space station, in the empty darkness between star systems, something moved. It was too far away for any sensors to detect clearly. The automated monitoring stations that floated in deep space recorded brief energy pulses, but the computer systems labeled them as natural phenomena. Solar wind maybe, or radiation from distant stars. The energy readings lasted only a few seconds each time. They appeared in different locations, always moving in the same direction, always keeping to the empty spaces where no planets or space stations existed. If anyone had been watching carefully, they might have noticed a pattern. The energy signatures were too regular to be natural, too organized to be random. But nobody was watching carefully. The galaxy was peaceful and busy. People had more important things to worry about than strange readings from empty space. On a trading ship heading toward the Centauri colonies, Captain Rowe checked his navigation display. His ship carried medical supplies and would reach the colony in 2 days. As he plotted his course, his sensors picked up a brief energy spike from the space ahead of him. "That's odd," he muttered, checking the readings twice. For a moment it had looked like there was something massive out there, but when he looked again, space was empty. His co-pilot, Lieutenant So, leaned over to see the display. "What is it?" "Probably nothing. Sensor glitch, maybe." Rowe adjusted their course slightly to avoid the area where the reading had appeared. It was probably just cosmic radiation, but it never hurt to be careful. 3 hours later, another ship detected a similar energy pulse in a different location, then another ship, and another. But each captain thought it was just a technical problem or natural space phenomena. None of them reported it to the authorities. In the Galactic Council building on the capital world, President Yoon was reviewing the week's reports. Trade was up 15%. No major conflicts between species. 3 new planets had asked to join the council. Everything was going well. His assistant brought him a cup of hot tea and a small stack of papers. "Just some routine reports, sir. Nothing urgent." Yoon flipped through them quickly. Mining quotas from the Outer Rim. A request for more funding for the archaeological projects. a few sensor anomalies that the deep space monitoring stations couldn't explain. He paused at the last report. Strange energy readings from 17 different locations over the past month, all in empty space, all moving in roughly the same direction, toward the galactic center. Probably just equipment malfunctions, he said to himself, signing his approval. For new sensor equipment. Old monitors broke down all the time in the harsh environment of deep space. But if President Yoon had looked more carefully at the data, he might have noticed something interesting. The energy signatures weren't random. They formed a pattern, like a vast formation of ships moving through space in perfect coordination. Ships that were trying very hard not to be seen. In the darkness between the stars, the pattern continued, its ancient journey, patient and silent, watching and waiting. Captain Lee Minho walked through the long corridors of the generation ship New Dawn. The walls were made of smooth metal that glowed softly with blue light. Children ran past him, laughing as they played games their great-grandparents had invented during the long journey through space. The ship was like a small city, with parks, schools, and homes for 50,000 people. Lee had been born on this ship, just like his father and grandfather before him. His family had lived here for 15 generations, watching the ship grow, bigger and more advanced with each passing year. What started as a simple colony vessel had become something amazing. The New Dawn was now 10 kilometers long, with weapons and technology that no other species in the galaxy could imagine. "Captain, you're needed on the bridge," said Commander Choi over the communication system. Her voice sounded serious. Lee took the elevator to the command center. The bridge was a large room filled with screens and control panels. Through the main window, he could see hundreds of other ships flying in perfect formation. Some were as big as the New Dawn. Others were smaller but still massive by galactic standards. Altogether, they made up humanity's silent fleet. "What's the situation?" Lee asked as he sat in his captain's chair. Commander Choi pointed to a large display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of small dots representing different alien civilizations. "We're tracking 23 active species now. The Zephyrians just invented faster-than-light communication. The Crystal people are building new colonies in the Orion section of the galaxy." Lee studied the map. Each dot represented millions of lives, entire civilizations that had grown up while humanity hid in the darkness. Any problems between them? Small trade disputes, but nothing serious. The Galactic Council is keeping peace. Choi switched to another screen. "But there's something else, Captain. Lieutenant Han has been monitoring the deep space sensors." Lieutenant Han looked up from her station. She was young but very smart, one of the best sensor operators in the fleet. "Captain, I'm picking up strange readings from the Galactic Center, quantum fluctuations that don't match normal space phenomena." Lee felt his stomach tighten with worry. "Show me." The main screen changed to display energy readings from the center of the galaxy. The lines and numbers meant nothing to most people, but Lee had been trained to read them since he was a child. What he saw made him afraid. "How long have these readings been active?" he asked. 3 weeks, sir. They're getting stronger every day." Han adjusted her controls to show a comparison with older data. "The pattern matches what our ancestors recorded 2,000 years ago." The bridge became very quiet. Every person there knew the history. Every human child learned about the Devourer in school. It was the reason their ancestors had left Earth and the inner galaxy. It was the reason they had been hiding in empty space for so many generations. "Are you certain?" Lee asked. Han nodded. "The quantum signature is identical. It's waking up." Commander Choi walked over to the tactical station. "Captain, should we contact the other ships in the fleet?" Lee thought. For a moment. The silent fleet had over 2,000 ships spread across this section of space. Each one carried families who had lived their entire lives preparing for this day. They had advanced weapons, powerful shields, and knowledge that no other species possessed. But they also had something more important. They remembered what the Devourer could do. "Send a coded message to all fleet commanders," Lee ordered. "Tell them we've detected Stage 1 awakening patterns. Begin Phase 6 preparations." Around the galaxy, human ships received the message. Captains who had never seen combat began checking their weapons systems. Engineers started preparing the special technologies their people had developed during centuries of exile. Everyone knew this day might come. Now it was here. On the new dawn, Lee walked to the observation deck where his daughter Kim was studying with other teenagers. She looked up when she saw him. "Dad, is something wrong?" she asked. Lee smiled, but she could see the worry in his eyes. "Just work, honey. Keep studying. Your lessons are important." Kim was learning about galactic history, studying the different alien species and their cultures. She dreamed of someday visiting their worlds and meeting other young people from across the galaxy. She didn't know that her father was trying to decide whether those civilizations would still exist in a few months. Later that night, Lee stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Commander Choi joined him. "The fleet is ready, Captain. All ships report green status on their weapon systems. The new quantum torpedoes are loaded and armed." "Good," Lee said quietly, "but I hope we won't need them." "Do you really think the aliens can handle it alone?" Choi asked. Lee shook his head. "They don't even know it exists. They've been living in the peace that our ancestors bought with their sacrifice. But that peace is ending." Through the window, they could see the distant glow of inhabited star systems. Billions of aliens lived there, going about their normal lives. They had no idea that an ancient horror was stirring in the dark, getting ready to consume everything they had built. "How long do we have?" Choi asked. "Maybe 6 months, maybe less." Lee turned away from the window. "Send word to the Council of Fleet Captains. It's time to discuss breaking our silence." Admiral So led his fleet of 12 warships toward the Vega system. 3 colonies there had stopped sending messages 5 days ago. The Galactic Council was worried. Colonies didn't just go silent without reason. "Admiral, we're approaching the outer edge of the system," reported Captain Rowe from his destroyer. "Sensors are picking up something strange." So looked at his display screen. The readings made no sense. Where the third planet should be, there was something else. Something that hurt to look at directly. "All ships maintain formation but reduce speed," So ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with before we get closer." As they flew deeper into the system, the crews of all 12 ships stared in horror at what they found. The planet Vega 3 was gone. Not destroyed like in a war, not broken apart by asteroids. It had been changed into something impossible, where a green world with 5 million people once lived, now hung a perfect black sphere. It was the same size as the planet, but its surface was smooth metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange. Energy patterns moved across its surface like veins carrying poison through a body. "By all the gods," whispered Captain Rowe. "What happened to the people?" Lieutenant Han on the lead ship checked her sensors again and again. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy output from that thing, and there are structures, moving structures on the surface." So ordered the fleet to stop at a safe distance. Through their telescopes, they could see the black sphere was not empty. Geometric shapes moved across its surface like insects. Each shape was the size of a city, but they moved with purpose and intelligence. "Send a probe," So commanded. "I want to know what that thing is made of." The small probe flew toward the black sphere, sending back data as it approached. The readings were impossible. The sphere was made of matter that their computers couldn't identify. It generated energy in ways that violated everything they knew about physics. When the probe got within 1,000 kilometers of the sphere, something reached out and grabbed it. Not a physical hand, but some kind of energy field. The probe's signals became strange and distorted before they stopped completely. "Admiral," shouted the communications officer. "The probe, it's still transmitting, but the signals are different. It's like the probe is trying to tell us something, but in a language we don't understand." So felt cold fear creeping up his spine. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. Send an emergency message to Galactic Command. Tell them we need help." But even as they fled from the Vega system, more bad news arrived. Captain Kim reported from the Centauri colonies that 2 more systems had gone dark. The same thing was happening across the galaxy. At Galactic Command on the capital world, President Yoon called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 20 different species gathered in the Great Council chamber. Fear and confusion filled the room. 17 systems in 1 month, President Yoon announced to the worried crowd. We've lost contact with over 40 million citizens. Our scout ships report the same thing everywhere. Planets converted into these black spheres. The Zephyrian ambassador stood up with his tall blue form shaking. Our scientists cannot explain what we're seeing. The metal these spheres are made from doesn't exist in nature. The energy patterns suggest technology far beyond anything we understand. What about our defense fleets? Asked the crystal delegate, her voice ringing like musical chimes. Surely our combined military forces can destroy these things. Admiral So stepped forward with grim news. We tried. 3 battle groups attacked the sphere in the Altair system. Our weapons did nothing. Lasers, plasma cannons, even nuclear missiles. They didn't even scratch the surface. A murmur of fear spread through the chamber. If their most powerful weapons were useless, what hope did they have? There's something else. So continued. When our ships got too close, the sphere, it tried to change them. We lost the cruiser Starfire. It just stopped responding to our commands and started flying toward the sphere. We had to destroy it, ourselves, to prevent whatever was happening. President Yoon looked older than his years. Do we have any idea what these things want? Have they tried to communicate? No direct communication, So replied. But our long-range sensors show they're spreading. Each sphere seems to be building smaller versions of itself and sending them to new systems. If this continues, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some delegates demanded immediate evacuation of their homeworlds. Others called for a united military response. A few suggested trying to negotiate with whatever intelligence controlled the spheres. In the depths of space, far from the panicked council meeting, Captain Lee Min-ho received the emergency broadcasts on his ship. The crew of the New Dawn gathered around their communication screens, listening to the reports from across the galaxy. It's happening faster than we expected, said Commander Choi. The Devourer isn't just awakening, it's actively expanding. Lee studied the tactical display showing the spread of the black spheres. The pattern was exactly what human records from 2,000 years ago had predicted. The ancient enemy was following the same strategy it had used before. How long before it reaches the inner core systems? He asked. Lieutenant Han ran calculations on her computer. At current expansion rate, maybe 4 months. But Captain, if it starts creating the big conversion ships like our ancestors described, it could be much faster. Lee made his decision. Send the activation codes to all fleet commanders. Begin Phase 7 protocols immediately. Commander Choi looked surprised. Sir, are you sure? Once we break radio silence, there's no going back. Lee nodded grimly. The galaxy is about to face extinction. It's time they learned that humanity never really left. The first sign appeared on every sensor screen in the galaxy at exactly the same moment. A massive energy signature, bigger than anything ever recorded, suddenly existed where empty space had been seconds before. Then another appeared. Then 10 more. Then hundreds. Admiral So was drinking coffee in his office when his aide burst through the door without knocking. Sir, you need to see this right now. So followed him to the command center where dozens of officers stared at their screens in amazement. The main display showed their local star system, but it looked completely different than it had an hour ago. Massive ships, each one larger than their biggest space stations, had appeared around every planet. Where did they come from? So asked, his coffee cup forgotten in his hand. We don't know, sir. They just appeared. No hyperspace signatures, no warning. It's like they were invisible and suddenly decided to show themselves. Before So could respond, every communication system in the building activated at once. A clear voice spoke in perfect translation through every speaker and screen in the galaxy. This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the Human Silent Fleet. We have been watching your struggle against the ancient threat. We offer our assistance. Prepare for our arrival. So dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. Humans are extinct. They disappeared 2,000 years ago. On his main screen, a man appeared. He looked ordinary enough, with dark hair and kind eyes, but he wore a uniform unlike anything So had ever seen. Behind him, the bridge of his ship showed technology that seemed decades ahead of anything in the galactic database. "Admiral So," Captain Lee said, somehow knowing exactly who he was talking to. "We need to meet. The enemy you're fighting is called the Devourer. We've fought it before." Around the capital world, hundreds of enormous human ships took positions in space. Each one was sleek and powerful, built with smooth curves that seemed to bend light around them. Their hulls were made of materials that scanners couldn't identify. Their weapons were unlike anything in current military designs. Commander Kim stared out the window of Station Theta 7 as 3 human ships approached. The smallest one was twice the size of his station. "Officer Park, are you getting readings from those ships?" Park looked at his instruments with confusion. "Sir, the energy output is incredible. Their power systems are generating more electricity than our entire planetary grid. And their weapons, I've never seen anything like them." The human ships docked with the station using connecting tubes that formed themselves out of what looked like liquid metal. Captain Lee Minho walked through the airlock wearing a simple uniform, followed by 2 officers. "Commander Kim," Lee said, with a slight bow. "Thank you for allowing us to dock. We have much to discuss and very little time." Kim couldn't stop staring. "You look so normal. I mean, we thought humans were just stories." Lee smiled sadly. "We've been gone a long time, but we never left. We've been hiding in the empty spaces between stars, watching and preparing for this day." "Preparing for what?" "For the Devourer's return. The black spheres that are consuming your worlds are just the beginning. We faced this enemy once before, long ago. It nearly destroyed everything we knew." Officer Park stepped forward nervously. "Captain Lee, how is it possible that you have such advanced technology? Our records show humans were barely capable of spaceflight when they disappeared." Lee's expression became serious. "We didn't disappear because we were weak. We left because we were smart. Our ancestors saw what was coming and made a difficult choice. They took our entire civilization into exile to prepare for this moment." In the conference room, Lee showed them holographic displays of the Devourer's true nature. It wasn't just converting planets. It was an ancient machine intelligence that consumed entire civilizations and added their knowledge to its own power. "Each world it converts becomes part of its mind," Lee explained. "The people aren't killed. They're absorbed. Their thoughts, their memories, their creativity all become part of the machine. That's how it grows stronger." Commander Kim felt sick. The 40 million people on those worlds, they're still alive in a way, but they're not themselves anymore. They're part of something horrible. Lee changed the display to show human weapons. "That's why normal attacks don't work. You can't fight the Devourer with conventional weapons. You need tools specifically designed to disrupt its quantum consciousness matrix." "And you have these tools?" Park asked. "We've spent 2,000 years developing them. Our ships, our weapons, our shields are all designed for one purpose: destroying the Devourer permanently." Across the galaxy, similar meetings were taking place. Human captains met with alien leaders sharing knowledge and technology. Some aliens welcomed them as saviors. Others feared them as potential conquerors. But as reports came in of more worlds being converted, old prejudices had to be set aside. President Yoon met with Captain Lee in the Galactic Council chamber. "Why reveal yourselves now? Why not sooner?" "Because you weren't ready before," Lee replied. "Your civilizations needed to mature, to develop their own strength. If we had returned too early, you might have become dependent on us, instead of growing into the partners we need you to be." "Partners?" Lee nodded. "The Devourer has grown stronger too. We can't defeat it alone this time. We need the combined strength of all galactic civilizations. Your people have developed technologies and strategies we never imagined. Together, we might actually win." As if summoned by his words, urgent alarms began sounding throughout the building. A messenger ran into the chamber with terrible news. "President Yoon, the Devourer has created something new. A massive conversion ship, bigger than anything we've seen. It's heading directly for the core worlds. Captain Lee stood up, his face grim but determined. Then it's time for the final battle, Admiral. So prepare your fleets. Commander Kim, ready your stations. The real war is about to begin. The final battle began at dawn on 3 different star systems. Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching as thousands of ships from dozens of species formed the largest fleet in galactic history. Human vessels flew alongside Zephyrian cruisers and crystal ships that sparkled like diamonds in the starlight. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral So," came the voice over the communication system. "Target the main conversion ship. Everything else is secondary." Through the main viewing screen, they could see their enemy. The Devourer had built something terrible. A massive black ship, larger than most moons, crawled through space toward the core worlds. Smaller conversion spheres surrounded it like a swarm of deadly insects. The ship's surface writhed with mechanical tentacles that reached out into space, searching for new worlds to consume. "Commander Choi, status report," Lee ordered. "All human ships ready, Captain. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Reality anchors are online." Choi paused, checking her instruments. "Sir, I'm reading over 3 million life signs on that thing. All the people from the converted worlds." Lee felt his heart grow heavy. Somewhere inside that horrible ship were the minds of millions of innocent people, trapped and twisted by the Devourer's influence. They weren't dead, but they weren't truly alive either. "We know what we have to do," he said quietly. The battle started when the conversion ship launched its attack. Beams of dark energy reached across space, trying to grab the Allied fleet and convert them into part of itself. But the human ships were ready. Their reality anchors created bubbles of normal space that the Devourer's weapons couldn't penetrate. "Now!" shouted Admiral So. "All ships attack." The combined fleet opened fire. Alien weapons that had seemed powerful before looked like toys compared to human technology. The New Dawn's quantum torpedoes tore through space, each one carrying enough power to destroy a small planet. When they hit the conversion ship, reality itself seemed to scream. But the Devourer fought back. Smaller conversion spheres broke away from the main ship and attacked individual vessels. Captain Rowe's destroyer was caught by a conversion beam. His crew had only seconds before their ship would be absorbed. "This is Commander Choi," came a voice over the radio. "I'm breaking formation to assist." "Choi, no," Lee shouted, but it was too late. Choi's ship rammed directly into the conversion sphere that was attacking Rowe's destroyer. The explosion lit up space like a new star. Both ships were destroyed, but Rowe's crew was saved. "She saved us," Rowe whispered, over the communication system. "Commander Choi saved my ship." The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were lost. Lieutenant Han led a desperate attack on the conversion ship's weapons, flying her fighter directly into the enemy's defensive systems. She managed to destroy 3 of the ship's main conversion beams before her fighter was caught and absorbed. "Han's sacrifice opened a weakness," reported the tactical officer. "Section 7 of the conversion ship has no defenses." Lee made his decision. "All ships concentrate fire on Section 7. New Dawn will lead the final assault." "Captain," said his daughter Kim, who had joined the bridge crew despite his orders to stay in safety. "The readings from that section, there are over 1 million people trapped inside." Lee looked at his daughter, seeing his own pain reflected in her eyes. "I know. But if we don't stop this thing, everyone in the galaxy will suffer the same fate." The New Dawn dove toward the conversion ship, followed by 50 other human vessels. Their weapons fired continuously, carving through the ship's black hull like knives through flesh. Alien ships provided cover, their crews willing to die to protect the human assault force. As they got closer, the Devourer made one last desperate attempt. It opened its consciousness directly to the attacking ships, trying to overwhelm them with the combined thoughts of millions of absorbed minds. "Captain," screamed the communications officer. "The voices, I can hear all of them. They're asking us to save them." Lee gritted his teeth and kept flying. The voices of the converted filled his mind, begging for freedom, crying for help. But he knew there was only one way to save them. All ships, Target the quantum core. Maximum power. The final attack began. Every human ship fired at once, their quantum torpedoes converging on a single point deep inside the conversion ship. The explosion started small, just a bright point of light. Then it grew. Reality itself began to unravel around the conversion ship. The black hull cracked and fell apart. The mechanical tentacles stopped moving. And slowly, like a dying beast, the massive ship began to collapse in on itself. "It's working," shouted Officer Park from his station. "The quantum matrix is breaking down." But the victory came with a terrible cost. As the Devourer died, the minds of all the people it had absorbed were finally released. They appeared as brief flashes of light like souls returning to the universe. Lee watched through his tears as millions of lights danced through space before fading away. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The converted worlds slowly returned to normal. The black spheres cracked and fell apart, revealing the planets beneath. Life would return to these worlds, but it would take time. Captain Lee stood in the Galactic Council chamber, surrounded by representatives from every known species. President Yoon presented him with the galaxy's highest honor. "Captain Lee Minho and the human fleet," Yoon announced. "You have saved us all. How can we ever repay this debt?" Lee looked out the window at the stars, thinking of all the friends he had lost in the battle. "Just remember," he said quietly. "Remember what happened here. Remember the price of peace. And never forget to watch the darkness between the stars." The silent fleet took its place as guardians of the galaxy, no longer hidden but protectors in the light. They would make sure the darkness never returned.